हॅलो फ्रेंड्स, चित्रपट किंवा बातम्यांमधून आपण कोळशाच्या खाणीबद्दल ऐकले असेल, पण प्रत्यक्षात ही खाण आतून कशी असते, इथे कसे काम चालते, हे तुम्हाला बघायला आवडेल का? चला तर मग माझ्यासोबत बेलाव्ह्यू कोल माइन मध्ये. जमिनीच्या आत दडलेल्या ह्या कोळशाच्या खाणीतून जवळपास 5 दशलक्ष टन कोळसा आजपर्यंत बाहेर काढला गेला आणि अजूनही याचा 4 पट कोळसा तसाच शिल्लक आहे. पण काळाच्या ओघात ही खाण बंद झाली आणि आता इथे टुरिस्ट स्पॉट तयार करण्यात आलाय. सुरुवातीला एका प्रशस्त पार्किंग मध्ये आपली गाडी लावायची. मग इथे असलेल्या ऑफिसमध्ये $25 प्रति माणसी तिकीट काढायचे. त्यानंतर आत असलेले छोटेखानी संग्रहालय बघायचे. थोड्याच वेळात आपली बॅच सुरू होते आणि आपल्याला खाणीत प्रवेशाची तयारी करण्यासाठी बोलावले जाते. हेल्मेट आणि दिवा घालून आपण सज्ज होतो. सोबतच अंगावर जॅकेट असेल तर बरे, कारण आतमध्ये तापमान 4 डिग्री पर्यंत खाली घसरलेले असते.
Alright, so since we got a big group, I just want to make sure this is a good volume. You guys can back hear me all right?
चला तर मग आज जाऊया आणि सोबत गाईडने दिलेली माहिती
Here we
ऐकूया.
are at the entrance to the mine. This here is what you'd call the portal. You can see right up top there, the portal was constructed in 1929. That is not when we started mining though. We actually started back in 1903 and we went all the way through to 1961. Now through that time, that 58-year tenure, our biggest buyer was the Canadian Pacific Railroad, CPR for short. They took up just about 90% of all our total sales. And all that coal they bought from us, they went to fueling their trains back in the day because they had steam-powered engines. Now around the 50s, the CPR, they converted from steam engine to diesel engine, right? Meaning they didn't need that coal anymore, right? So they stopped buying from us. There went pretty well all of our sales. So because we didn't really have anyone else to sell to, we closed down due to bankruptcy in 1961. But right up there you can see it says WCC, that stands for West Canadian Collieries. So that was the company that used to own us back in the day. They owned 3 mines in the Crow's Nest Pass here. The Bellevue Mine, the Greenhill Mine, and the Grassy Mountain Mine. Those are 3 mines they owned. None of them are active anymore. That's because, well, the WCC, they went bankrupt, they don't exist anymore, right? Now one last thing, oh yeah, you can feel that. One last thing about the outside here before we get on in there. This portal here, it would have connected to an external building called the Tipple. Now the Tipple is a massive wooden structure that pretty well took up the entirety of this valley area. It was huge, right? The purpose of the Tipple is that's where all that coal is getting sorted and processed at, right? And then eventually dumped into those big old carts of the CPR, which would have actually been where the highway is now. So the rail line was there, and they moved it over to build that highway. Here comes the rain, so that's going to conclude this outer section.
Good timing.
Good timing, right? Oh yeah, we're going to turn it out. Looks like we've got it going?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So here you can see there are 2 kinds of carts. This guy over here, this is your typical coal cart. We're going to see another one of these further down in the mine. I'll just put this guy here down there. What I want to talk about at this stop though is this big metal cart. Now this here is what you'd call a rock duster. Found within your rock duster here is the aptly named rock dust, right? So that's this stuff here. This is made out of ground up limestone, this rock dust. It's a very fine powder, you can see. What's gonna happen with this stuff, is you're gonna throw this, you're gonna spray this all through the mine, all over the walls, right? That's done so that if there are any explosions in the mine, the vibration from the explosion will cause this rock dust to now fall off the wall, coating any coal on the ground. That'll stop the coal from fueling the fire from that explosion. So essentially a fire retardant, right? Essential for safety. Now, does anybody have any questions before we get into the dark mine? All good? I'll see you guys are pretty vigilant. Most of y'all have your lights on already. For those of you who don't have your lights on, what you can do is reach to the right side of your lamp. You should get a square button there. Put that on and you'll be good to go. Wipe that off. We're missing one lap there. Turn yours on. Lock hoodie. Go ahead and turn yours on. Looks like we've all got
Going into
our
coal
lamps on
mine.
then. Once we finish with that picture there, we're on our way. Right, you guys can follow. This is what you call a timber set. So before I explain to you what this timber set was used for, I'm going to ask everyone who has spotted a pencil. Anyone?
Pencil.
Pencil somewhere. There. Congratulations. So there's a pencil in the timber sets, right? So it's not so much the pencil that's important, rather it's what it's inside of. So this hole here is what you're going to call a Welshman's notch, right? So typically you'd see either a pencil or a twig or a pen or something skinny inside of your Welshman's notch. Every day when these miners come to work, they're going to try to pull the pencil out of the timber set. And if you can pull it out like I have done, that means everything is safe, you get to go to work. But if those miners try to pull the pencil out and it's stuck up in there like that, that means something has happened. Now, perhaps an explosion or a cave-in has happened, which causes the rock above us to shift, which in turn causes your timber set to shift, choking up on the pencil, making it hard to pull out. If that's the case, then you're not going into the mine, it's not safe, right? But as we can see, this is now my 3rd time pulling this pencil out, so we know it's safe to go in, right? Now I will let y'all know, nowadays we do not rely on pencils. We use these things up on the roof here. Well, these are what you call telltales, right? So how these work is you have this tricolored knob sticking out here, and then you have a cord attached to it that goes through that rock above us. And if that rock is to shift for one of the prior reasons that I just stated, if it shifts, it'll choke up on the telltale, making it so that perhaps we can't see the green, yellow, maybe we can't even see the red line. If that's the case, you're not going in. Luckily, when these were put in back in 1989, they've actually not moved once. We've always seen that green.
Except for today.
Except for today. Sorry, guys. Anywho, so we know it's pretty safe in here, right? Now, are there any questions before we carry on? Okay. Okay. All right, you guys can follow me. We're actually found, and this is the first coal seam of 6 that exist in this mountain. Miners, they only mine out 4 of those 6, and today we can only see 2. Out of those 4 coal seams that the miners mine, they took out 13 million tons of coal throughout the 58-year span of this mine. 80% of that 13 million seam had artificially. What had happened was the way that the geology formed, when that seam was running this way, there was a bit of rock that had essentially cut it off, and then after that little cut off there, it continues again. But because it stopped there, they had to cut. Went on for quite a ways. This tunnel here, as we walk through, we are inside of the mined out coal seam. This tunnel ran for about 5.5 kilometers back in the day. We're not going that full 5.5 kilometers today, though that'd be a pretty long tour. We're going about 300 meters of that 5 kilometers. Right? Now this seam, as we walk through it, you're going to notice it's pretty big. This was even wider than that first seam. This one was about 50 feet in thickness, and it's about 30 feet high. So it's pretty big. Now, at this stop here, what I want to point out to you is this big wooden structure here. So as you can see, it's called box cribbing. It's not Jenga. It's not the miner's pass ladder. So the box cribbing here, as you look up there, you can see it was used for supporting that ceiling, right? Now the thing about this box cribbing is that it's quite difficult to construct, right? Let's go back to the 20s, the 30s, right? You're not going to have bobcats or cranes coming in here bringing these logs to set them up. You're going to have miners carrying them in here by hand, right? It was difficult. So you had 2 jobs involved in the construction of this cribbing here. One role is your timber packer. Now the timber packer's job is to, well, pack in these timbers, carry them in. So you can imagine these guys are carrying these 200-pound logs. So,
That would have been a lot of money.
well, not necessarily. That was the 70s. So that's only 50 years ago. $2 an hour is not too high. Child labor. Fun times. Right? Anyways, that's it for here. Do you guys have any questions before we go? No? You want to grab that light for me again? It's right behind you there. Thank you. You guys can follow.
हे फक्त सेकंड शाफ्ट आहे हा असे 6 शाफ्ट आहेत असे 6 शाफ्ट आहेत एवढी मोठी माइनिंग 50 फूट काम 30 फूट 50 फूटांचं 30 फूट लागतं गाडी घेऊन गेले सगळं आता दगड लागला दगड नाही काढणार कोळसा लागला तो काढून घेऊन गेला हां खोदत हां
Like that is because when you look at the wall behind you, the roof rather, right, it's at an angle, about 38 degrees back to the roof is, and we mined it out like that, because that's the coal seam to form that. So rather than taking out extra hard rock like limestone to get a perfect square tunnel, they just mined it at the shape that the seam had formed. And that's why these walls, they're counteracting that, right? So if you feel a little dizzy, that's why, because you're sensitive. This one's 213. We'll say this is my number. So when I get to that lamp house, I give the lamp man my check. He gives me my lamp. I head down to work. He's going to take my check and put it on what is called a check board, and that's going to symbolize that I'm underground. Right? So let's say hypothetically the mine needs to get evacuated for whatever reason, maybe an explosion. So everyone's leaving the mine. They're taking their checks back off the check board. And if, for whatever reason, after everyone's been evacuated, 213 is still up there, well, that means that I'm still on the ground, right? I might need rescuing, I might need saving. So, very important system. Right? Now, there was a story once of a miner who he didn't want to go to work. So he got his buddy to put his check up on the board so the company thought he was there, so that his wife as well thought he was done working. Just when an explosion went off that day, the thought he was dead. He never took his check off the board, right? So you didn't want a lot down here, right? Really important. Now, that is it for here. You guys have any questions? All good? Yeah. Okay, we're all good. If you want to grab that light phone, we appreciate it. Awesome, thank you. What about the layout of this mine? So back when this mine was active, it wasn't actually just this one tunnel. There would have been 9 different levels or 9 different tunnels in this mine. We're sitting on level 6 of 9. This is what you would call the main haulage road. It's the main haulage road because it's the only one that connects to that portal, right? So of course, since we're on level 6 and 9, some guys are below us, some are above us. The guys working up there, they've got a problem. They don't have any rails, nor do they have carts. There's your problem. So what do you do with all that coal when you finish mining out? There's where your chute comes in handy. Those guys up there, they're gonna throw their coal down the chute here into this guy right here, which is called your apron. Well, this gate is gonna be up on the chute. You aim to get about 2 tons of coal. Ton empty can hold 5 tons of coal. So you've got 6 tons sitting in front of you here. What's going to pull this is something called a dinky. So that's a compressed air locomotive. Essentially a small train is what's pulling these carts here. On the lower levels, however, you've got carts as well. Now they're a little smaller, about half the height, so this big. Still 1 ton empty, surprisingly, but they only hold 2 tons of coal this time around. 3 tons in total. What's going to pull those smaller 3-ton carts? Now these are horses pulling these, right? The black as night, right? Well, these two, as you can see, they are not. So we might be able to surmise that maybe these are the guys who are taking the checks.
Yeah, those are the dummies.
So, on to the tools that they would have used in these rooms. First things first, in the early days, there's two things. Now this here is called a hand pick, or a double-headed pick. Many confuse this for a pickaxe, and this is technically not a pickaxe. The reason why is because, well, this one has 2 picks on either side. Pickaxe, right, would have a pick on one end, and of course an axe on the other end, right? So here's a pick. So, miners, they love these, because this is going to do for them. Why would they do that? Now the reason why they were sabotaging the ventilation was to stop the oxygen from flowing in. See the bit on the end here, it's going to be going in and out, of course, way faster than I'm just doing there. And they were pretty heavy as well. Right? So one of my hands here, it's one of the lighter ones. This is about 15 pounds, and this is technically what we refer to as a finishing pick. So this is what you use to break apart the pieces of coal that have already come off the wall. Now when you're going up against the coal face, up against the wall there, you're going to be using ones that are about twice the size and twice the weight of these. So here, turn around. Turn around, hold it again.
But look down. Oh God. Okay.
Got it?
Close enough.
There you go. Okay.
Close enough. Good enough. Close enough.
Okay, who else wants to? Anyone else? We all good? You back there? Not that heavy?
You get up in there and like be all contorted. What do you think?
But there are a few more things I'd like to tell you guys before we head on out of here. So at that fence point there, that's your 300 meter mark, right? As I said. Of course, like I said about a million times by now, this tunnel goes on for 5.5 kilometers, right? Now, what the crazy thing is, remember how I said there were 9 different levels, right? If you take all the distance mined out on every one of those tunnels and add that all together, that'll run you about 240 kilometers.
Lime salt. Lime salt.
You guys can keep walking if you want.
Okay, thank you. Come on.
सगळ्यात शेवटी आम्ही एक फोटो काढला आणि खाणीतून बाहेर पडलो. धन्यवाद.